Hey guys, let me show you how we're going to render down this black bear fat so that we can use it for cooking, but also some other fun projects like bear fat soap. So the first step to this whole process is finding some fat. We were very fortunate and were able to use bear fat, but you can go to a local butcher and ask if they are selling beef fat. I'm also going to be saving my venison fat from now on. We had it in our freezer storing for a couple of months, so I do recommend getting it out of your freezer about 1 to 1.5 hours prior to cutting it. You can see I didn't wait and it was still pretty frozen, so I'm just trying to saw through this, but it was nap time, so I was trying to get as much done as possible. When you're cutting it up, it's really important to get the flesh away from the fat and just make it as clean as possible. The smaller cuts, the better it's going to be. You're going to get more out of your render. I have heard of people grinding this up into a grinder and making it really fine, and I'm definitely going to be trying that next time. But once you have it all cut, you're going to add it to a crock pot and then turn the crock pot on low. I add my lid, some people don't. I did, and I just let it go and mixing it every once in a while, and then I kept draining out the liquid as I'd go, and it cooked a lot faster. So I would leave the lid on, and then as I would get a lot of liquid, I was draining it off. You do want a cloth here. I did not have a cheesecloth, so my first drain I just used my metal thing. I knew I was going to do more renders, so it didn't matter. This is the next morning. I accidentally cooked it. You don't want to do that. You want it to melt, not cook. So think of it that one, low and slow. The lower and slower you can go, the better. This is my tallow cake the next morning after I let it sit in the fridge. And you can see I have a really soft tallow cake, but you can see all the impurities in the bottom. So you want to get as much of that off as possible and just throw it back in the crock pot. My first render, I did just water, but my second render, I did water and salt. I didn't measure, you just want to throw it in. All the salt cooks out. It's just there to bring out the impurities. So as I began to get translucent, I waited until it was completely clear, and then I started pouring it back into my bowls, putting them back in the fridge overnight, and I just repeated this process 4 times. I did 4 different renders. You don't have to do that many. I did. And you can see here how translucent that gets. That's when you want to scrape it out of your crock pot. So that was my 4th render. And I had my mason jars in the oven at 220 for 15 minutes along with the lids. There was a lady on TikTok, and I don't remember where I saw it, but she tested out all the different canning methods with this. She did self-sealing, which is what I'm doing, water bath canning, and pressure canning, and she found that it didn't matter which type of canning you did, they all lasted the same amount of time. Now, you're gonna have those people that tell you, no, you have to do it this way, or you have to do it that way. Same with, oh, you can't use a crock pot, or you have to leave the lid off on the crock pot, or it puts moisture in it, all of that stuff. You know, just find a method that works for you and do it. So here I am, just filling up my jars. I try to leave, I think, about 1 inch headspace on them. And then when you put the lids on, you just want to do fingertip tight. My bear tallow was very soft. So I'm doing beef right now, and I'm interested to see the difference between beef tallow and bear tallow, because bear is a naturally more greasy animal. And your tallow really will depend on what the animal eats. Now, you do want a nice white tallow. You might get a slightly yellow tallow. You just do not want a brown tallow, or that means that you burnt it. So here I am putting the lids on, and then this will last for a long time, and you can do so many amazing things with it. Alright guys, thank you so much for tagging along on this rendering journey with me. I hope you learned a lot. I know I learned a lot doing it, and I was so excited that my husband was able to get a black bear here in Pennsylvania so that we could try something new and have this for cooking and future crafts like lotion and soap, so stay tuned for those videos. This has a best use date by 6 months, but it can last up to 12 to 18 months if stored properly. Once you get to that, you can move it into the fridge or the freezer for a much longer shelf life. So again, thank you for tagging along, and stay tuned for all the future tallow adventures.